Good morning. I think it's time for a haircut. I just can't even keep my hat on anymore. Hair's getting too long. Anyway, this is the second video today. I've been getting something in the spirit. I don't usually do a video unless I'm led to do it. And what I've been sensing in the spirit, that God's preparing us. He's preparing both the body and he's preparing the leadership to come together. So we're very close to the time that SkyNet is being implemented. And if you're in the city, you're going to become trapped in the system. And and God has promised that he's going to remove the righteous, those who are worthy to escape. That's not the whole church, but those whose hearts are ready, right? Those who are worthy to escape, who have come to a certain level of faith. And you can only get faith in your hearts if you read the Word. If you're not reading the Word, you're not going to grow spiritually. So there is a price to pay for those who just go to church and not read the Word and not grow in grace. They're not growing. There's a price to pay for that. And I was one of those that my light went out. I was chasing prophecy and visions and things like that, but I left the Word behind. And after a while, my lamp almost went out. And it's just been these past 3 or 4 months that I've been getting my lamp filled with oil, and that the Lord's preparing me for the ministry that He's called me to to bring forth the ingathering of the harvest, to gather in the harvest. And to gather in the harvest, it's not like what most Christians understand. To gather in the harvest, it's not talking about unbelievers. It's not just talking about unbelievers. It's talking about that God's going to gather in the righteous into his barns. And he's going to remove the wicked. The wicked are going to be taken out of the churches, and they're going to come under judgment. But God's going to remove the righteous, those whose hearts are ready to come out of the system and to be brought into these Goshen camps. So the Lord's been preparing my heart, because I know that there's a time coming where he's going to say, okay, now it's time to build these camps. And this is what I want to share today. And so say this is a year from now, and God's bringing forth the remnant out of the cities. We're coming together into little collectives. Now, how do you get established? You have to remember when the children of Israel, when they were in the wilderness, every time they broke camp, they had to set up camp again. That must have been a tremendous amount of work. 3 million people breaking camp and having to set up camp again. So we're going to have to learn how to set up camp. And it might be 1 acre plot. It could be a 10-acre plot. You could have a back 40 somewhere. It could be out in the bush somewhere. But the plans that the Lord's gave me, I can basically look at any plot of land. I can tell you what's going to work and what's not going to work. I can say, well, this would be good to set up a 1 acre camp, or maybe we can set up a 6 acre or a camp that's got a large community center with 6 camps around. You could have, 6 camps and a spiritual center, which would be roughly about 10 acres. Or you could just have a 1 acre camp. You might have various 1 acre plots. Maybe you won't be able to put them all together. But the main function of coming into Goshen is where we can grow together. We learn to love one another, where people take their monies sold from their lands and possessions and houses, and they put it together so that the needs of everyone is met. And if you can't do that, then you can't be part of the community. Is that your heart's not right, that you're holding back, right? It's either all or nothing in these times that we're coming into. And you won't be able to survive in the cities. The city's going to come under more pressure and pressure. So these Goshen camps are going to have to be made. But it's not the final. It's not the final resting place. It's a place where God's going to gather in the righteous, and we're going to learn to love one another, to work together, and prepare for the final relocation. The Lord's not going to reveal these final resting places until the time. But there's going to be a lot of work to do. When the Lord first called me in this in 1988, when He first gave me Project David, the Lord spoke to me and He said that the time is coming where you're going to have to take a year's labor, and be able to compress it into one day. That's the times we're coming into. And so we're going to have enough people freed up on these camps where you can compress 1,000 hours into one day, 1,500 hours into one day. And that's to build these different portable shelters, whether they be the tent, like the logic systems that the Lord just gave me with the portable platforms, whether it's going to be the yurts. But the logic systems that the Lord gave me, they're the most cost efficient. They're not just a cheap throw together. They're strong enough where you can build an entire house on top of them, because they're like a foundational support. But when we come together into these camps, you're going to have more than just your living quarters. You're going to have more than just your cooking. You're going to need places where you can do other things. It's going to be much more than just coming to living together. It's going to be preparation for the future. You might have to set up places for making soap, for making candles. You might need bathroom accessories. You might need a place where the women can do quilting, maybe canning. There's a whole variety of stuff that needs to be set up. And that's just the secondary stuff. But the main primary objective is that we need to have the people to establish the building concept in the center. So you're going to have a camp like this, whether it's going to be 6 or 12 houses around, or whether it's going to be 6 full camps around, right? But you're going to need the numbers. You're going to need the numbers, right? You're going to need at least your smallest base camp would be probably have enough people where you could put out 500 to 1,000 hours. I have this already done up, but we're going to have to come up with a plan where we live on the perimeter, right? And the center is our work area. So you live here, you sleep here, you work here, and you come together and you combine your talents and abilities to prepare for the end game. And just like when the time comes for the West Coast to be evacuated, when the Lord showed me those convoy of 10,000 people, He took me in on a zoom into the middle. And I saw all these transport trucks, 5 miles of transport trucks, a minimum of 250 transport trucks. And they were all outfitted, fully loaded and tarped. I wasn't allowed to see what was under the tarps, but I knew it had to do with portable housing. And I believe that these shelter logic systems that the Lord just gave me in the last month, they would break down and be compact enough where you might be able to get 8 or 10 of these on a trailer. I mean, it's enough combination for me, for possibly a dozen families per transport truck, and that's what it's going to take. When these final locations are established, you're going to have to be able to break camp. You know, we're going to come together in Goshen. We're going to set up for the long term, but it's only a temporary arrangement. It's like it's how we're going to live in the next step. But you set up, and your camp has to be functional, right? You can't just set it up any which way. There has to be an order to it. There has to be a function to it. You're going to have to work out. It's going to be a bunch of things that you're going to have to work out. So first, God's going to gather in a righteous remnant, and then we're going to have to work, come together and work out the bugs, and go from there. And and that's what Chuck Kembrant saw when he saw the time where we came into the I know it was the first 3 years that he saw huge weather changes, 120-degree temperatures across America that caused oil shortages, fuel shortages, water shortages, all kinds of shortages, power shortages. And so this is where these camps are going to be really needed, right? And because we can't wait until the government does something. We're going to have to do it, but God's going to do it. But he saw at the time of occupation, when America was taken over by Russian and Chinese troops, that basically what cities were left, people were still worked. They went to their jobs and all that, but it was they were prisoners of war in their own cities. And the time came where the Antichrist kingdom started to come into America, and where the Hitler type of spirits started to come in, and Christians were being hunted for food by the Chinese. They're being hunted by the Satanists and the gays for food, for sport, but also for food, because there wasn't any food. At that time, the angels came, and so there's going to be a people that's going to not come out in the first wave, but there will be a second wave of righteous that will come out, but they're going to have to go through some tribulation to be purified and made ready. So there'll be a time where God's going to make a way of escape, even for those that get caught in the system that are not ready in the first wave. So the angels came, and they brought them into places in the wilderness that only they knew about, and no one can go there unless they're given access. So I believe that in this first wave, we're coming from Egypt into Goshen to prepare to work together, and that our end game is to establish these places in the wilderness. And the time comes that God will show you, okay, this is where I want you to anoint this land, I want you to anoint this people, and this is where they're to be. The Lord's raised up these hands to anoint a people and a land. Unless the Lord's called you to do it, you can't do it. You can't just lay hands on a certain property and say, God, bless this land. You have to be raised up as a priest unto the Lord, right? You can't just do it on your own initiative. And but anyway, I believe that God's about to bring us in, and maybe the spring of next year, it'd be the start. The Lord's still preparing this vessel here to go from the natural, to trust Him, to move me into His work. So I'm in that transition, and I'm used to doing everything with these hands, supplying my own needs with these hands. But the Lord's brought everything to a standstill, and I can't fight God. So I'm just saying, God, here am I. I'm learning to rest in Him. because I know that He's bringing forth the revelation of Jesus Christ in me, and that when the time is right, He's going to open up the doors to go. Says, okay, it's no, gather in my righteous, gather him in, gather him in. This is the revival that's coming. So in the meantime, I'm going through all my data, poems, poetry, drawings, and all that over the last 20 years, and taking them and putting them together into I got a lot of stuff I've worked on, but I haven't finished. So I'm taking all the stuff that's relevant and not putting it together. You know, all these different camp formations, a lot of prophecies. The Lord's given me a lot of insight through prophetic teachings and downloads. So getting all this stuff ready, right? Stuff in the spiritual and stuff in the natural. So when the time comes, I can say, okay, these are the plans. This is what's going to work for you. Build it. Because I'm not going to have time to stay around and babysit you guys. These are the plans. This is what's going to work for you. Build it. This is the technologies that God has for the places of refuge. Build it. Then I go on to the next place. But I won't have time to babysit because time is short. Okay, going to leave it here and get this out. I'm doing this video because the Lord's put it in my heart to do this video today and get it out. Thank you, Lord.